my niece, my nephew, Laura and George. Now, Laura did want to be here, but the family's in France at the moment. And her ideas for singing were mainly from High School Musical. But we thought that Bop to the Top and particularly Breaking Free weren't particularly appropriate at this juncture. So I'm the youngest you're going to get at the moment. So what I'm doing now is sort of a little bit of a break from what I normally do, which is essentially standing in front of people and telling them about characters and dodgy metaphors and things along those lines. That's sort of my job. So we do it slightly differently from that at the moment. And I don't want anything to get in the way of the jokes, so it's not going to be particularly conventional. I'm going to get back to that tomorrow anyway. So now conventionally what would happen in a eulogy such as this is that I'd start with something which, if I was in my lecturer mode, I'd say was a chronological narrative, which is basically we start with something early on in my relationship with Billy, or the fact that we knew each other, such as the fact that he taught me Fatty and Skinny at the age of 6, which I then proceeded to recite in assembly. We could start with that. And then we'd move on to the more poignant stuff later on, of course, like the fact that he told me that he loved her every day, even into his 80s. But Billy wasn't exactly conventional. And so we're not going to do it in that way, we're going to do it slightly differently. We're going to, I think actually, just dispensing with that for a moment, if he was here, he'd be bored already and he'd be making fart noises at the back. I'm hoping I can pick it through the medium, perhaps, I don't know, traditional jazz or whoopee cushion. So he'd already be bored, so I'm going to keep it quite brief, really. So we're not going to do it in chronological mode, we're instead just going to pick out a few moments that were sort of classic Billy from a grandkid's point of view. And that's the first thing I wanted to talk about, really, was the fact that we did call him Billy. And some people didn't really understand that, but the reason behind that was that's his name. We were mates, and that's the thing we sort of, Mark and I, sort of talked about this, and that was the thing that was most important to us, was Billy was our mate, and we actually worked together. That's why we played in bands together, so it wasn't like a normal granddad. So the thing I remembered most about Grandad was that he was my mate. Other people's granddads, they were sort of slightly different, but they had sort of dogs named Busker or Cameron, and they said things like, well, I'm slightly concerned about the nature of the family you're keeping at the moment, but they smell of cabbage and things along those lines. But Billy wasn't like that. Billy played jazz constantly, and he would burst into hysterics every time you said the word bum. And he would also do this every time anyone bent over, which, bearing in mind he worked in a shoe shop for quite a long time, might have been quite problematic when everybody bent over like that, no matter where it was. And just thought I'd pick out one or two little moments. The first one would be, I was 19, and Billy was in his mid-70s, and he was playing at the Royal Scot, he was playing a jazz gig, and I just met a girl, and I was taken on a date there to go and see the jazz, so look how cultured I am, and all this type of stuff. And that's my granddad, isn't he cool, and all that type of thing. So we went there and we listened to his set, it was great. And then she went off to powder her nose, and I got me Billy. Billy was on a little break, and I said, so what do you reckon, Bill? Do you think that's all right then? Do you think she's all right? And he paused for a while, a little while, instead of pause, and then finished his third whiskey and went, big tits. And because he was my mate, and because he was a big kid, he used to, of course, do stupid things, just for the hell of it, because that's what your mates do. And there's two incidents I'd like to just discuss quickly here. They both involve water. And the first one was I was the age of 3, and my granddad, who was in his mid-60s, I think, even at this point, I think recently retired, and he thought it would be a good way to show off his youthful nature as we were out in the countryside somewhere, to leap across a river, which he did successfully. And of course, I thought, well, my granddad's cool, so I'll do the same thing. And so, 3-year-old, I hurtled towards the riverbank, fully expecting to leap across in the manner of Billy and land cat-like on the other side. And my granddad, my Uncle Pete, had to sort of rescue me as I floated down the stream in a rompus, looking up to see Billy laughing, of course. The other time, when I think think we were about 8 years old, and this is one of the few times that I had a momentary falling out with my granddad, because all the rest of the time we had a fantastic time. We were 8 years old, and again involved in water. Mark and I were out with my granddad, and we discovered a rope swing across a stream. And so we both had a go, and it was great, and Billy had a go as well, and it was all fun. Again, it was late 60s by this point, still had to have a go. And it was my go, and I was being pushed out, and Billy was pushing me out all the time, and again, to add to the ambience, as was his way, he would go every time he pushed me out. And I thought, ooh, I'm slipping. I can't handle that anymore. So I said, Grandad, I'm slipping. Billy, let me go, I'm slipping. To which he responded with, pushes me out again and again. And so eventually I sort of half screamed, half laughed, Billy, I'm going to fall in. And that, of course, was too good an opportunity to miss for my granddad. And so once again, I was floating downstream, and I looked up and I saw Billy and Mark, this time killing themselves laughing on the back. He was the funniest pensioner in the world. He was not a pensioner, actually. He was an 8-year-old in a pensioner's body. And the best thing about him, from our perspective, was that he was the same as us in terms of humour, and he was the same in terms of worldview, and what we laughed at, he laughed at. And it really was the same sort of 8-year-old humour as we had at that time. And I'm sure everyone who knew Billy knows exactly the difference between a woman coming out of the church and a woman coming out of the bath, for example. Billy told that joke and killed himself laughing at least twice a week at the punchline. And it didn't matter who you were, a grandkid, a neighbour, even the vicar, you were getting that joke despite Billy's protestations. His laugh was contagious, and even when he got the punchline wrong, which he did quite a lot. Although I will just I won't do it now, but I just will sort of mention that his really was a soul full of hope. So, I moved away when I was 21, and I missed my granddad a lot. I missed his squeaky man stories, his love of fart humour, his schoolboy songs about sexually transmitted diseases. All of this was what made him who he was. And I love the fact that, and I miss the fact that he only wanted to have cake for dinner, for example, and that actually in his 80s that's exactly what he got. He decided he only wanted to have puddings, and so he only had puddings, and I think that's exactly what I want to be like when I'm in my 70s or 80s. And I just want to leave you with something about the last moments of Billy's life, and I came up when I knew my granddad was very poorly to see him, and it wasn't, if I'm being fair, particularly pleasant, but there was just a little glimpse of pleasantness in it, really. The last weeks of his brilliant life, he was still a bit of a kid. He was looking up from his hospital bed, only a few days before going to that great jazz picnic in the sky, and Billy had enough strength to fight through the morphine and deliver his verdict on proceedings. What do you think of your hospital bill? We asked. And again he paused for a minute, and there was perhaps just a glimmer of that boyish humour. This place is a shithole, he said. So I'd just like to finish off by saying he was a kid to the last, and he'll always be a kid to us, and he was the best man ever. So cheers, Bill. Thanks very much.
It's almost like being at the jazz club looking out here. Liz, £4 for members, £6 for non-members. Well, Billy, best bloke ever. That sums Billy up really, but I could hardly leave it at that. And I feel I should introduce myself at this stage. For those who don't know me, I'm Bill's son Pete. For those who don't know me, some people will do anything for a cup of tea and a scone. It's important that what I say now is what Billy would have said. Billy laughed at everything in life, nothing was taken seriously, and this eulogy reflects that. Those of a faint-hearted disposition might want to leave now, and I must warn you that some sentences contain flash photography. We always remember Billy for his sense of fun, his wonderful placid nature, and his willingness to do anything for everyone. He always said funerals were miserable affairs, and he didn't want any tears or sorrow when he departed this world. so we'll make sure there's no misery. I want lots of laughs, please. Just to warm the audience up a little, here is one of Billy's best jokes. Brum brum, what's this? Anybody? A motorist. Billy's worst joke was, when does Wednesday come before Thursday? At this point you always had to resist the obvious and say, well, it always comes before Thursday. His answer was always, in a dictionary. Never could work that one out. Billy had a very cavalier attitude towards life and death. To illustrate that, Billy had a contact book of all his musician friends that he might need to call on for a gig. If someone died, he would cross the name out and write, dead. Just so he didn't bother ringing them again about a gig. For all you musicians out there today, he beat you to it. Does anyone out there want his contact book? Billy's family, as you well know, loved him so much, and Julie and Sue have asked me to say a few words on their behalf. This is from Julie, this. Should I do a girly voice? Or, no? When I was a little girl, it was Dad's job to wash my hands and knees. Before he could do that, he had to chase me round the kitchen before catching me and sitting me on the draining board to scrub the dirt away. Thursday was Dad's half day off work, and he was able to take me back to school after lunch, riding on the crossbar of his bicycle. A lovely memory. One of my best memories was walking with Dad on cold winter days with hands clasping in the pocket of his sheepskin coat. I felt so warm and safe. As time passed, Dad got a car and I was too old to be sat on the draining board for my knees to be scrubbed. I developed a typical teenage girl's way of saying the word Dad when asking to be taken to friends' parties, dances or nightclubs, and being picked up often in the early hours of the morning. Dad never refused. Could I twist him round my little finger? Yes. Of course I could. Just something I want to add here. Julie decided to make a lovely crocheted blanket for Billy to keep him warm. It was a beautiful thing. Every day she would sit and do a few stitches, and every stitch was made with love. It would keep him warm and envelop him in our love. Unfortunately, he died on the day she finished it. So, if ever Julie offers to make you a blanket, head off in the opposite direction as quick as possible. However, Julie has put it in the coffin with him. It won't keep him warm, but it will certainly envelop him in her love. This is just a few words from my wife, Sue. Billy was a really special person who I was proud to call Dad. I loved him just as I loved my own dad. He made me laugh and used to ask, how can those little feet hold all your weight? Much to Mum's despair. Love is standing in a freezing cold arcade, passing Billy 2p's to feed the machines for 2 hours. We were like two big kids. I loved him so much and I'll really miss him. And now my own personal memories. There are so many memories from my childhood, but one stands out in particular. Every week I went to swimming lessons, and after every session, Dad would take me to the sweet shop and buy me a quarter of midget mint creams. It took me a year and a half to learn to swim, and the reason for that was every time I was tested, I got almost to the other side, put my leg down and failed, as I wanted to keep the supply of sweets going. I often wonder if he'd sussed that out. As you know, Billy loved music, but one of his favourite tapes wasn't related to music. For Billy, as Philip said, the funniest joke in the world was farting. Every time it happened, he would giggle like a little schoolboy. One Christmas, we bought him a tape of fart noises from the gadget shop. Billy would be out in the kitchen making a cup of tea, and he would hear him put the tape player on. And all he would hear from then on was hysterical laughter, and the tea never would arrive. Billy had a wicked sense of humour at times. It was only last year, when we were on holiday with Mum and him in Yorkshire, that we took Mum to a shopping outlet. Billy and I sat in the car and listened to jazz. At some point, Billy decided he needed the toilet. We set off to the toilet, and they were a little further away than we would have liked, but Billy managed to get there. On the way back to the car, he was moaning about the distance he had to walk. As we eventually got back to the car, he sat back in his seat, his eyes rolled into his head, and he gave a last gasp. At that point, I got hold of his face and I'm shouting, "Dad! Dad!" Hearing the panic in my voice, he opened his eyes, pulled a funny face and said, "Fooled you!" Dad had a couple of heart attacks which resulted in him being admitted to hospital. On the second occasion, he was actually eating apple pie and custard when he suffered chest pains. Mum immediately phoned for the ambulance, and on doing so, Billy said, "I wanted to finish my pudding first." Billy was advised not to play his musical instruments for a few months to lessen the strain on his heart. However, a job came up one day with local musicians, and Billy promised Mum that he was only going along to watch, so she wasn't to worry. He sneaked his clarinet out of the house and returned that night telling Mum he had enjoyed listening to the band. Unfortunately for Billy, his story unravelled when a local radio station had recorded the gig, and who should be listening to that particular radio station the next day but Mum, who recognised Billy playing. Oh dear, poor Billy. When Dad first had a mini-stroke, it affected his speech quite badly. Billy's reaction to this wasn't typical. He cried at first when he couldn't understand what was going on. And then he burst out laughing when he tried to say something because it came out as complete gibberish. He was crying and laughing alternately. The only guy who ever laughed at having a stroke. The next day the doctor wanted to examine his gums. He made the mistake of saying to Billy, "Let me see your teeth." At that moment, Billy put his hand to his mouth, took out his false teeth and thrust them in the surprised doctor's hand. We've all got fond memories of the family days out we had when we used to meet up with Mum's sister Queen, Dad's nephews and their children. There was one occasion in the mid-60s when we were going to take 2 cars for a family outing to Blackpool. Unfortunately, Michael's car broke down, and there were 11 of us travelling to Blackpool in an Austin Cambridge, with me as a 12-year-old pressing the clutch as Dad didn't have enough room to move his left arm. On another of our family days out in Kielder Forest, we all went for a walk. We came across a big puddle ahead, and Dad, being the gentleman he was, offered to carry Queenie through the muddy puddle, so she wouldn't get her feet wet. As we walked through the puddle, Billy seemed to get lower and lower, leaning forward all the time. We all stood open-mouthed as Queenie eventually succumbed to the laws of gravity and fell headfirst into the muddy puddle. I vividly remember seeing her sitting in this puddle, laughing hysterically. The Allied invasion of occupied France at the close of the war is well documented. What is not so well known is the inadvertent invasion of German-occupied France by Billy and his mate Lofty in their signals wagon. Somehow, Billy and Lofty took a wrong turning and found themselves in German-occupied France before the Allied forces got there. They realised their mistake when they saw German uniforms. It wouldn't have seemed a bright idea to have stopped and asked the way back. They made a hasty retreat in the knowledge that they had 6 bullets each, so could at least have shot 12 Germans. I don't know exactly how this happened. I suspect that as they were both musicians, they were probably thinking about their next gig. So there we have it. Forget Omaha Beach, remember Billy and Lofty, the invasion. I used to have a small fishing boat which Dad and I used to take up to the Highlands of Scotland on holiday. On one occasion we were staying at a house very close to an island called Gruinard Island. Now, Gruinard Island was contaminated with anthrax in a germ warfare experiment in the 50s. The whole island had huge big warning signs scattered around it telling people not to set foot on the island because of the dangers. Warning signs, particularly to Billy, were like a red rag to a bull. And he actually wanted me to land on the island and have an explore. When I refused, he commented, "Well, if I was in charge of this boat, I would take risks." We used to take cans of beer out with us when we were fishing from the boat, and one occasion, Dad had one too many cans of beer. He hooked a starfish, and as he brought it into the boat, he said, "Oh look, I've got a starfish and it's got 8 testicles." As you know, in recent years, Billy's dementia got slowly worse, but there were many laughs along the way, even with that. We took Mum and Dad to Ireland a couple of years ago, flying from Newcastle to visit Mark and Aoife. And when we got there, we were travelling through Dublin, and Billy said, "Why are all these signs in a foreign language?" I said, "That's because we're in Ireland, Dad." He said, "How did we get here?" I said, "It's okay, Dad, I know a shortcut." He was so popular with Aoife's family in Ireland, he came back with his own Facebook page and a fan club. You may not know, but Billy had a love of poetry. He had a fascination with the creative use of words and the formation of a vivid image in the reader's mind by the imaginative use of vocabulary. I'll always remember the last poem I read to him before he was taken into hospital for the last time. I'd like, if you don't mind, just close your eyes and contemplate, because this is a beautiful piece of prose. The boy stood on the burning deck, the flames around him flickers. He said, "It doesn't bother me, I've got asbestos knickers." There were many other poems which Billy would recite. Don't worry, Mum, I won't recite them here. But if you want a personal audience at the jazz club later, I will. Billy was only in one acting role in his whole life at school, and I always remember the words he said. "Well, Joe, chalk up the score and I'll pay you the weekend." The score, Billy, is that you owe us nothing and you gave us everything. As a final salute, I'd like to invite Mark and Philip, his 2 grandsons, to do the thing that Billy always did at the party when he made a particular something out of a napkin. Yep. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Gosh, I know what a politician feels like. Just for my own satisfaction, can we have 3 cheers for Billy? Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete. Well, after that, So it'll soon be time to say your last goodbyes to Billy. Before we do, we're going to listen to another piece played by Billy and the band called Rainy Day. And that will be followed by his brother Ray playing the harmonica. And that would be a very special tribute to Billy, because when he had to give up the saxophone, he transferred to a harmonica, and he always had it in his pocket. And it is with him now. And while the band is playing, you may like to think about Billy. Remember him when he was well, the times you shared your triumphs and your tragedies. Remember the times he made you laugh or just smile, the times you laughed together, and the times you just enjoyed being with him. These memories are precious. Billy was important to you, and he is the reason that you came today. And for those of you who do have a faith, you may like to use this time to say your own inward prayers.
Well, I'm going to play something for Bill, especially for him. I was going to say about his harmonica. I bought it for him when he couldn't play his sax anymore. His favourite tune was "Oh Susanna." I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. the trouble was that they also had a doorbell that played the same damn tune. And every time someone came to the door, rang the bell, Bill picked up his harmonica and played along with the doorbell. And the person at the door would ring the doorbell again and he would carry on there. So at the end of the day, whoever was at the door never got in. Anyway, this is dedicated to Bill, and it's Oh, for a Closer Walk with Thee.
Anybody got a hairdryer? A piece of paper stuck in the harmonica. Everyone's getting impatient in here. Go and get it.
Makes it worse.
Did you do this? Anyway, we'll start again.
And now it really is time to say final farewells to Billy. If you're comfortable doing so, will you please stand?
Conventional end to a funeral, and as you're all trapped here, you can't really get out without an embarrassment. You are forced to join into this. This was one of my dad's favourite pieces of music because in the chorus he used to jump up and down. Now that is mandatory. Those who are physically able to do so are invited to do so. But he used to make a cuckoo noise in the chorus. So, have any of you ever finished a funeral making cuckoo noises and jumping up and down? Today you will. So I'm just going to invite John to play the chorus, and I'll hopefully demonstrate what you all need to do, and we will be watching. Have you all got that? Please stand. Just before we start, can I just hear one chorus of E-oo, please? After 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was 4, wasn't it? That's fine. Right, off we go.
cat on the roof. I went away last Sunday, I left me cat with you. I went to sunny Benidorm for a week or two. Me cat, it was so precious, a lovely Persian blue. You rang and said that it was dead, I didn't know what to do. I nearly had a heart attack, it was beyond belief. To get the news so suddenly, I nearly died with grief. You should have told me slowly, build it out with lies. Told me quite slowly of my precious cat's demise. You should have said, your cat's on the roof. The fireman's on his way, and that's the truth. I'll ring you in an hour to tell you that they've got her, but don't worry that your cat's on the roof. Don't worry that your cat's on the roof. The fireman lost his grip, that's the truth. He thought his grip was sound, and it slipped right to the ground. Well, I'm sorry that your cat was on the roof. Well, I'm sorry that your cat's on the roof. The vet's on his way, and that's the truth. The kiss of life he'll give, but it lost its will to live. I'm sorry that your cat was on the roof. That's how you should have told me, silly youth. Be more creative with the truth. While I'm on, how's me mother? She's a mother like no other. Well, I'm sorry, but your mother's on the roof.
Thank you.